Hi Greedy 3Ders. Today I'm just going to talk through the process of painting this Lara Croft model. Now this was a commission sent to me for painting, which I have done, as you can see there. I'm going to talk you through the painting process and just show you some of the tricks of the trade and some of the little nuances of how I've done that today. Hope you enjoy it. Don't forget, if you do enjoy all things 3D printing and painting, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. So we begin as usual with the priming. It's a matte black air primer. Now if you want to get this model yourself, I'll put a link in the description to where you can purchase it. And here you can see me just giving it a layer of matte black all over. I'm not going to show you the whole process, but rest assured we matte blacked the whole thing over. Now this seals your models and also allows you a great base to paint on. You can paint straight on top of resin, but it's not recommended. And also the black just helps some of the paint stick, and it also adds for some zenithal shading if you're doing faces and flesh, etc. Talking about flesh, I'm going to use the colour triad, as I always do, from the Army Painter Air Mega Set. It's 3 colours, a darker, a mid and a light shade, and here you can see me putting the darker shade on. I'm using a very light airbrush technique, and I'm going to put lots of little layers on. I want to try and work it from the top down so that I'm acting as a kind of light source, if you will. So the body will have the colour all over it, but the areas that would naturally attract light, the upper areas, especially the top of her boobs there, are going to be a lighter colour as we go through the process. I'm just making sure I get all the flesh areas covered, as I want to make sure it's uniformed all over. And when I've done that and I'm happy with that, I'm going to move on to the face. Exactly the same process on the face, but I do want to make sure that all the areas are covered. The things I'm going to kind of leave a little bit shady is under the chin, the bottom of the nostrils, just on the bottom parts of the eyes. And again, if you think about where her arm sits coming down, you can see that I'm working down on it. So the underside will have some coverage, but it will be a lighter colour on the top and a darker colour on the bottom. Little layers, often that's how I tend to do skin. I don't jet wash it all across. Doing skin is not an easy thing, and you can't just give it one layer of pink and it's done. You really do need to add some shade and some depth to it. Now the black primer will allow you to do this, and the way that you airbrush it will also aid in this. If you just cover it in one colour all over, it won't look right, it really won't. And if you look at your own skin, it's made up of a myriad of skin tones. So taking your time with this, and again just trying to concentrate from the top down with lots of little layers until you're happy that that base layer is done. Legs as well. Now this is quite a big area of flesh to cover, so I'm going to do exactly the same. There's going to be no change to how we do this. You can do this with a brush. It's not impossible to do this with a brush. Just use some dry brushing techniques to do it using the same colours, but it's just much easier and faster and more economical with an airbrush. Now once you've happy the first layer is on, move to your second layer, the barbarian flesh, and again from the top down just hit the areas that would naturally catch the light. I'm not trying to change the whole colour of a face, I'm just trying to give the face some depth and some change into the colour of it. And again on the arm, you'll see that I do the top of the shoulder, the back of the forearm, the places that will be facing out and facing the sunshine. I won't be doing too much on the underside of it. I'm going to leave that fairly dark, and exactly the same on her other arm there from the top down. Now if you imagine if she's standing upright, the light is going to be coming down onto her, so I'm going to do the top part of her chest there on the whole, and you can just see the difference there. And as the cleavage goes in, the shade will get darker, and that's what I want it to look like. And the legs are going to be caught on the back, they're going to be caught on the top. All those places you probably get sunburnt when you're walking wearing similar attire. Not that I do, but you may. Okay, top colour now, the wildling flesh, and you've got to be careful with this one. I often say don't turn her into an anemic. We don't want to turn her into a vampire. We don't want Blade coming after her. We just want to give some of the areas a lighter colour, and again I'm just going to go on the top down. Now it will darken a little bit as it dries, and we're going to add another coat on the top, and I'll show you what that is in a minute, but just work from the top down. You'll see me here just going around the edge of a chest area, again just trying to add some contour and some depth to the colours, front of her legs, down her shins, back of her calves, etc. Now don't worry if you make a mistake, if you cock up, just go back a colour and put it right. It's really easy to fix. Now once that's done, I'm taking some alien purple. I'm going to put one drop into the airbrush and I'm going to dilute this down so it's a wash. It's not a paint, it's a wash. And I'm going to just cover the whole thing over. Now this purple on top of the skin colour adds a layer of flesh. It just makes it look, I always say the same thing, like there's blood running beneath the flesh, and that's the look that we're after. The other thing that it does is it will settle into the ridges and it will make the darks of her eyes look darker. Now then, just moving on to the wet palette, and I'm using a dry brush technique with just a little bit of red paint, and I'm not turning her into a clown. I don't want to turn her into that. I just want to give her some colour to her cheeks, and I'm just going to touch those areas up because, you know, she's going to be wearing a little bit of makeup. It is Lara Croft. Now, the eyes, I take a dark black and I always paint the inner part of the eye black first, and I might just go across the edge just to make it look like there's some eyeliner on there. But I always find that by doing eyes this way, it makes them look a lot better. And let's face it, if you would have put the white on first, you would have just gone round the outside with black. Now once you're happy that the eyes are where you want them with the black, I'm going to move on to the lips, and I'm just going to use exactly the same red on the lips and a really narrow brush, and I'm going to follow the outline of them all the way around. Now lips aren't just one colour, so I won't be leaving them as one colour. I'm going to do an outer layer of red, and when that's dry I'm going to mix it with a little bit of the skin tone and put some shadow effects on the top of the bottom lip, and I'm going to touch her teeth just slightly white with this white here that I'm also using now to just do the inner part of her eyes. Now we spoke about this, so when you see me do this now, you'll see that there'll be an outer edge and eyeliner effect, which is great on female models. Now you might just see me as well just go over some of the black a little bit too far. Do you know what? It's not a drama. If you do that, take your black on a fine pen and just touch it back up again. It's really easy to put right, and keep going until you're happy with the look you've got. With a bit of makeup, just touch the edge of the eye as well, just to make that eyeliner look a little bit more elongated, and there we go. Now all I've done extra here is I've painted on the black for the outer parts of the iris. I've gone over them with a little bit of brown, a black dot, and I'm going to just put a dot of white in just as a reflection to the eyes, and I'm going to call the eyes virtually done. Now over to the bugbear brown, or any brown will do, and a really fine brush, almost a razor tip brush, and I'm just going to paint her eyebrows on. If you get a bit too much paint on the brush, use your thumb to get it off. You don't want to dollop it on there, and literally small strokes just down the eyebrow just to make them look a little bit hairy. If you want to mix a bit of black in with this to darken them up a bit, that's absolutely fine. Using the same brown as I've done the eyebrows, I'm going to use a fine brush again, and I'm just going to go around all around the edges of the hair, and once I'm happy that I've got all the finer points, I'm moving on to a larger brush and I'll just blather the brown all across the hair. Now this isn't the final colour for the hair, I will be doing something else to it when it dries, but at this level that is done. Now for her top, I'm using this feral green. Now you can use this colour, or you can go a little bit bluer if you want to. The choice is yours, it's your model. These are air paints, but I'm really impressed with the way that they paint on, and they do paint on really well. You will need a couple of coats of them though, that does go without saying, but because they're air paints, they just smooth on lovely. And just make sure that you don't go over all that really hard worked flesh that you've done. Just stick to the lines that you've got there. Now you'll see some of the black coming through. Do you know what? That's not the end of the world, because you're going to give it another coat, but even so, clothes will have some shadow on them, so that black isn't too bad if it pokes through slightly. Now using some speed paint brown, as you can see there, I'm going to put that on the hair. Now this is my secret weapon for hair. I came across this quite by accident, but I do most of my hair this way now. The speed paints are fabulous, especially onto a base layer of brown. The brown speed paint just makes the hair looks awesome. The dark black areas just settle into the deep areas of the hair, and the lighter outer areas stay as such. And a lather all over, and again exactly the same process on her ponytail, and I'm going to call her hair done. Second layer of the feral green is going on, and you can see already the difference that it's making. As I said, you know, some of the black coming through is not a problem, and at the end what I'll do is I'll mix that feral green with a little bit of white, and I'll just dry brush the higher areas to give it a little bit more texture. Now Lara's wearing a necklace and I've decided it's going to be a silver braid. You may decide it's going to be brownie leather, but it looks like a chain. So I'm taking the finest brush that I've got, a little bit of silver, and with a very steady hand and supporting the model with my little finger, I'm just going to touch that chain all the way across until I'm happy it's covered. And I'm taking some orc green, which I'm going to use for the emblem on the centre. And once I've done that and finished it, I'm going to varnish it up to make it look more like a jewel. Again, really be careful with this. Steady your hand, try not to get it all over your flesh. The gun, you can leave it silver. I'm going to paint this one black all over, just some matte black, and then I'm going to dry brush it with some silver. And on the bandage on her arm, some skeleton bone, just liberally applied to make that look like a bandage. Moving on to her trousers or her pants or her leggings or whatever you want to call them, I'm using exactly the same brown here. I'm using a nice big flat brush and I'm going to gently and carefully just put a base layer of the brown on. Now I'm going to work on that a little bit. It's not just going to be one brown colour. I'm going to put some brown on it. I'm going to use a little bit of a dark wash to highlight or low light some of the inner areas, and I'm going to dry brush some skeleton bone across it as well, but you need your base layer on, and that's what I'm doing here. For the straps, as a contrast to the brown, I did think about doing them leather, but I'm going to do them black just so they do stick out. And this bit took me probably the longest and was the fiddliest bit so far, but I did quite enjoy doing it. Just relax, put some quiet music on, and take a small brush and go through it. Put some magnification glasses on to make sure you're getting the most detail that you can, and paint it all over. It won't take you too long. When that's done, I'm going to go onto some pallid bone, and I'm going to take the bandage and just a little bit of the pallid bone speed paint and paint it on, and you can see straight away it adds a really good effect to the bandage. I do like doing bandages this way, and as an active paramedic, this is the kind of colour they'll look if they've been out in the field a little bit. Boots wise, I've just base painting them black. I'm taking some silver on a dry brush and I'm going to scuff up the areas that would be scuffed. That's the front of the toes, around the sides, at the back. I'm giving the laces a little bit of a blast over. I'm going to leave them as black because I think that looks really, really nice, but I'm just going to dry brush them all the way across. And once I've done both boots in the silver, I'm going to go back over them with some brown just to give them a bit of a dusty, muddy effect. Onto her arrow case, and I'm just going to use a little bit of the pallid bone there straight onto the black just to give it a little bit of a leathery look. And once that's done onto the base, that's going to use a little bit of primer, a little bit of the bugbear brown, just dollop the primer on. Same with the bugbear brown. I didn't need to dollop it on. I had some on the wet palette. I've just grabbed a bit in my brush and I'm going to mix it all around, and that gives you a great earthy tone. Now you can add a little bit of yellow to this if you want to. I didn't. I was happy with the colour, but of course if you want to do that, a tad of yellow will just give it a little bit of a better colour, but I didn't, and the reason will become apparent in a bit. The pallid bone colour again onto the brush. It's already on the brush here, Wally Tony. I'm putting it onto her bow, and just going to touch it all over the black, and the bow's not going to take much more work than that, apart from a little bit of dry brushing. I've dry brushed the ends of the arrows as well, and I'm using the same colour on the rope on the centres of the arrows, and there's also like a rope effect on the main sheath cover there, which I've covered in the skeleton bone. Not laid it on too thick, I've just dry boned it on, and that's it. That's the detail you need, that's all you need, and it looks absolutely fine the way it is. As I said, I'm going to just dry brush something onto the bow just to give it a little bit of extra look, and that's the skeleton bone again going on, and you can also see there all the shades and the colours. Same skeleton bone, we know we love skeleton bone, on the edges of the base, just to bring the edges of the rocks out. And once you've got an edging on there, I'm going to move across to a speciality paint. I'm going to go and use some of this stuff. This is Vallejo Mud Effect, and I'm just going to get a brush that if I don't want it I can throw it away. I'm going to grab some of it and I'm going to splodge it on the base. This stuff is great, absolutely love it. Not too much, you don't want to overdo it, you don't want to cover all your work up, but just pop it all over the base. And when you're happy that you've got enough of it on the base and it looks how you want it to, remember that her boots have been walking on the same surface, so splatter some across the bottoms of her boots and across the top. And what I've also done is I've just put some mud on the back of her legs, and I've put a bit on her arm and a bit on her hand just to add to the final effect of it all. And we are so nearly there now. I'm just going to mount Lara onto the base. I'm going to glue her in. You can see the two scythes she's got there, and I've just literally dry brushed those with a little bit of red and silver. I'm adding a bit more soil to the bottom of her feet, and voila, she is done.